Welcome to my channel. Asiana Airlines Flight 991. Asiana Airlines Flight 991 was a cargo flight scheduled to depart from Incheon International Airport, South Korea. It was to fly to Shanghai Pudong International Airport in China. On board were two crew members. Captain Cho Sang-gi, aged 52, and First Officer Lee Jong-woong, aged 44. Between the two of them, they had around 19,000 hours of flight time. It was expected to be a routine flight, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. However, during the flight, the crew reported a fire in the cargo compartment, and were now trying to divert to Jeju International Airport for landing. Radio contact was lost with the aircraft at 4:11 that morning. It is believed that the cargo on board consisted of semiconductors, mobile phones, liquid crystal displays, paint resin solutions, lithium batteries, and other liquids. All highly flammable. It's unclear on how quickly this fire spread. No doubt it spread rapidly due to all the flammable contents inside the cargo compartment. Sadly, the crew were unable to make it to an airport for safe landing, and the aircraft crashed into the sea off the Jeju island. Search and rescue were quickly deployed to the crash site. Parts of the aircraft were quickly recovered, but the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder could not be located at that time. Several ships and 3 helicopters helped with the search, but it had to be halted on August 3 after it was reported that a typhoon was heading their way. The search and rescue did not resume until August 5. Sadly, it was clear that there had been no survivors of this crash. Over the coming days, different parts of the aircraft were located and recovered, including the tail section, which was believed to have contained the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. Sadly, however, they were never located. Because the flight recorders could not be located during the investigation, the investigators were unable to fully determine the cause of the fire on board the aircraft. However, they did determine that it had started near one of the ULD pallets, which is believed to have contained dangerous goods, and was located at the rear of the aircraft. Investigators also believed that the aircraft could have experienced an explosion, due to all the flammable cargo it was carrying. It was determined that the crew were highly unlikely to have been able to get to the airport in time to land safely, and the fire would have spread rapidly throughout the aircraft. The bodies of the 2 crew members were not recovered until October 29. It was in 2012 that the International Civil Aviation Organization were thinking about introducing new safety standards to all airlines which carried lithium batteries on board, due to Flight 991 and that of UPS Flight 6 in 2010, which also crashed due to a fire on board, and was also transporting lithium batteries on board. Our hearts go out to the families of the 2 men who perished in this crash. May they never be forgotten. A big thank you to my viewer for suggesting Asiana Airlines Flight 991. Sadly, this wouldn't be the end of disaster for Asiana Airlines. And another crash would happen in 2013. Asiana Airlines Flight 214. Flight 214 was a scheduled passenger flight, set to depart at 5:04 p.m. on July 5 from Incheon International Airport near Seoul. The flight was set to land at San Francisco International Airport at around 11:04 a.m. on July 6. The flight was going according to schedule, and everything seemed fine on board the flight. The weather in the area was good with just a light wind. The flight was cleared to land at around 11:21 a.m., with the final clearance being given at 11:27 a.m. However, at around 1,600 feet, the autopilot was turned off and the throttles set to idle. The crew were now operating the aircraft manually. On board Flight 214 were 307 people, 291 passengers, and 16 crew members. At 11:28 a.m., the aircraft's landing gear and tail struck the seawall of San Francisco Bay, and would finally come to rest to the left of the runway. Smoke could be seen coming from the wreckage, and fire crews were quickly deployed to the area. 2 evacuation slides had been deployed on the left side of the aircraft, allowing those inside to escape. However, it was found that slides on the first and second door on the right side of the aircraft had deployed inside the aircraft during the crash, trapping the flight attendants in their seats. 4 flight attendants who had been sitting at the rear of the aircraft were ejected when the tail section broke off. However, they were extremely lucky and survived the crash. Sadly, 3 people did not survive the crash, and around 187 other people were injured. The NTSB were deployed to investigate what had happened to Flight 214. Why had this happened, especially as the weather had been good, and the crew had not reported any problems with the aircraft prior to the crash? In the final report by the NTSB, it was found that the mismanagement of approach and inadequate monitoring of airspeed had led to the crash of Flight 214. It was found that the aircraft had come in too slow and too low at the time the crash happened, and was determined to be the fault of the pilots. Deficiencies in Boeing's documentation of complex flight control systems as well as Asiana Airlines pilot training had also contributed to the crash of Flight 214. Asiana Airlines announced in 2013 initial payouts of $10,000 to all crash survivors. Families of those who died in the crash were paid out more than $10,000, but the amount is unknown. Asiana Airlines were fined $500,000 for failing to keep victims and the families of the deceased updated on the crash. This is a crash that could have easily been avoided and should never have happened. Our hearts go out to the families of the 3 people who did not survive Flight 214, may they never be forgotten. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel to view other content.